Hello and welcome to the Health Chat. I'm your host, Vicky Tsoleridis, and today I'm here with Nathan Cheong from Melrose. Hi, Nathan.
Hi, Vicky. How are you?
Very good. It's great to finally speak with you and get to know more about Australia's leading whole food brand that has been offering nutritionals and food to Australians since 1970, and what a legacy. And I thought we'd start at the very beginning, just to help out any new listeners or any people new to the industry, and then we'll fast track to the present.
Sure.
So do you want to start by giving a little rundown of how it all started?
Yeah, for sure. Well, you said 1970, so that makes Melrose exactly the same age as me, which is a bit scary. It's 52 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. So Melrose as a business started back then. Originally, actually started as a distribution company. The founder, Jeff Steinecke, many people would know that name. Has been obviously a bit of a legend in the industry for so many years. Jeff started the company originally distributing other people's products, other brands, and he, I guess, got to the point where he saw issues with either supply or there were brands got sold and then distribution changed, and I guess he wanted to basically be the master of his own destiny. So he actually started making products, and some of the first products that Melrose made alongside products that he distributed were the flaxseed oils. And the flaxseed oils still are around today. So the organic flaxseed oil, the original flaxseed oil, I guess the comparison or the product that came out against Udo's oil came out in the Melrose brand as well. And then from flaxseed, Jeff sort of went into vitamin C, fish oil, greens powders, all sorts of green superfoods, and over the course of the last, I guess, 50 years, Melrose has played in so many different areas. At one point, I should say, we had a full range of vitamin and mineral products. We had pet food products, and of course, we're very well known for our massage oils as well. So many, if not all, remedial massage therapists or bodywork therapists are using Melrose massage oils, and that brings Melrose up until around the early 2000s, when it was acquired by the Douglas family. And prior to the Douglas family acquiring Melrose, they acquired another well-known brand called Orchard, which is the Nulax brand. Again, that's another that's an 80-year-old brand. So the brands that we carry at the moment are obviously Melrose and Nulax under that banner. And up until very recently, Jeff's family was still working in the Melrose business, and Jeff still pops in from time to time to get his supplies of flaxseed oil and coconut oil and all sorts of different things.
Wow. It seems like Melrose, I've read, started in a garage, which most of these huge companies do. They start in very humble beginnings and then they grow quite quickly. Yeah. And when I look at those products that you mentioned, when we were talking about them and you said there was the vitamin C and the flaxseed, so there seems to be these hero products that Melrose is very famous for. What was it that was a hero product back then that we still have in your range today?
Yeah, well, it's flaxseed oil's one, but I think fish oil is probably the one that pops out because there's been so much work done around fish oil. Melrose has partnered with the Royal Adelaide Hospital, in particular the rheumatoid arthritis division over there, and we've, over the course of 15, 20 years, we've invested astoundingly $1 million in research, partnering with the Royal Adelaide Hospital, and the work particularly done around arthritis. So fish oil definitely is a hero of ours within our category, and that's we have the 1812 fish oil that I think going back 20 years, was the #1 fish oil in health food. It was certainly the first liquid fish oil that came to market in Australia, and we've evolved, the range since then, and it still is very popular now. And we're still continuing our research. In fact, there was a recent study came out around the benefits of taking our fish oil, our high strength fish oil, with rheumatoid arthritis patients, and they saw a significant reduction in inflammatory markers as well as a reduction in pain. So it would be great once that study actually gets published. I think it's maybe about 3 to 6 months away from actually getting published. We'll share that with the industry, because it's super exciting. There's not a lot of interventional studies demonstrating the positive impact of fish oil, particularly around rheumatoid arthritis. But I think there's a lot to be learned from this particular study. I know a lot of people take it for inflammation, and it's certainly it's been around for a long time, and I think people get the benefits. But having those clinical studies to demonstrate its true efficacy is really important.
Yeah, look, this is a true story. I remember growing up, I was very young, and my mother would take us to health food stores. And I don't know if you have the same sort of memory, but every health food store seemed to have this smell. And I don't know what it was. It was like a patchouli mixed with some sort of herbs. Every health food store smelled the same. And we moved around quite a bit when we were young. And every time my mum went into a health food store, they all smelled the same, but she'd always buy Melrose products, especially the fish oil. And she purchased it for her knee, which was causing her grief. And she noticed within about 2 months that pain had reduced substantially. And she took that right through till the end of her life. So there are some huge products, legacy products, that do work. And going back to those humble beginnings, I also remember we lived in Paran, and there was a Coles in Paran, and they would sell nut spreads. And I didn't know until very recently that those nut spreads were manufactured by Melrose, and they're still available, but under the Melrose banner. We didn't have hazelnut chalk, I'll be honest. This is a new thing. But I do remember those nut spreads very well. So it's good to see those sort of products still have a legacy.
Definitely. And I've got a similar story. When I studied naturopathy many, many years ago, 20 odd years ago, and as a student you worked in health food stores, and when I graduated I was working in a health food store and managing health food stores, and it was amazing. It's amazing how things come full circle, because the nut butters were some of our best selling products, along with the flaxseed oil and fish oil, and it's just great to see these products standing the test of time, given their quality and efficacy, and just how tasty they are as well. Yeah,
I've got to say, the fish oils I do give to my children because I think they're phenomenal, and I like that I can dose appropriately because they are a liquid and they're easy to consume rather than a capsule. I do also prescribe a lot of the Melrose fish oils. I think they're phenomenal, and it was great to see the way that they were transitioned into those glass bottles with clearly labelled what they're for. So I was really excited when that happened. So how does Melrose then come up with these products? Are your products driven by the market demand, or is Melrose creating that demand by finding new and innovative ingredients?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B. I think the Melrose product development life cycle is evolving. Now, if I think about my tenure at Melrose, I've only been there 1 year, and in that period of time, I'm very well. Let's just take a step back. I'm super passionate about product development. I'm super passionate about innovation. I live and breathe health food, supplementation, and I guess the range that we currently have is evolving, and it's evolving fast. And I want to ensure that we're, number one, we're meeting the needs of the health needs of all Australians, and number two, I want to make sure that we've got the best quality products from a quality perspective. I know a lot of brands say that, but we mean it, and we like to be able to say or trace the raw materials all the way back from where they're grown and right into the bottle. So that traceability piece is super important. They have to be efficacious. So they need to be therapeutic. Now, that could be a functional food, or it could be a vitamin or a dietary supplement. It could also just be a pantry item, but it needs to be efficacious from the perspective of, if we're putting, say, olive oil into a bottle, we need to make sure that it retains the freshness and the antioxidant qualities of say an olive oil. And we also need to be relevant. And what I mean by that is that we need to meet the market where the market is, and we need to be on trend. So if there are health trends that are coming through, we need to understand them, and we need to have product to meet those health trends. And I don't mean trends in the kind of fad way. I mean trends that are coming from science and that are evolving out of real information and understanding, how the human body works, and understanding how certain nutrients are impacting certain health conditions. So being really ahead of the trend is super important for us. So over the course of the next 3, 6, 12, 18 months, there's going to be quite an evolution of Melrose products coming through, which I'm super excited about, because it means that I don't have to go out to other brands to buy my supplements or my superfoods. I can buy them from Melrose, because I'm taking a bunch of stuff on a daily basis, and I want to make sure that I can, I trust the source of those new products that are coming through from us. So that's kind of how we bring product to market. But at the same time, we need to ensure that it makes sense. So if we've got, we have a range which spans across a full spectrum, all the way from, we've got skincare products, like we've got shampoos, conditioners, we've got Castile soaps, we've got massage oils, we've also got superfoods, we've got functional foods, and we've got therapeutic foods. And under those categories, you'll see evolution and you'll see innovation coming through, which is, I'm really looking forward to bringing some of those to market and showcasing them with Oborn.
So for those of you who are just listening and not watching, take a look at Nathan if you get a chance to hop on the YouTube channel, because he actually looks 30, and I think it's from all the goodies that he's taking. So you look amazing, Nathan. So you really do preach and believe in what you preach. You can see it in the way that you look.
Your check's in the mail, Vicky.
You can pay me in fish oil.
I'll pay you. Yeah, I'll pay you in fish oil for sure. Thanks. Yeah, I think here's the thing. I think if we're in this industry, and we choose to be in this industry, and we're in it for the right reasons, then we have to practice what we preach. I'm, like I said, I'm super passionate about health, and that's why I'm in the industry, and that's what brought me into the industry 24, 25 years ago. And I immerse myself in it. I'm constantly reading. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm educating myself. I think most of my education happened after naturopathic, university. It's happening now. Like, this is where it's at, and the information that's coming out now, and the way that we look at what is healthy, the way that we look at how to actually be healthy, how to be metabolically healthy, how to be metabolically flexible. What we put into our bodies on a daily basis is incredibly important. And it's almost, it's funny. I said we've come full circle. And when I originally studied, it was, a Western A price approach to diet and lifestyle. And I loved that. But then we got away from that over the course of the last, say, 10 years. And now it's kind of a mixture of things, and everyone's talking about plant-based diets, and how meat is bad for you, and meat causes cancer, and meat's bad for the environment, and we should be consuming, these Frankenstein style, Beyond Meat burgers to instead of meat because it's better for us. And it's just absolute rubbish. It is, I'm going to swear, it is bullshit. You can bleep me out later. But yeah, so we've come this full circle. Now I'm back on that Western A price, approach to eating, and I think it is best for me, and I'm not saying it's best for everybody, but it's certainly best for me. It's what I've dived down deep into. It's what I'm currently immersed in, and I do think it's the right approach. If I look back 10, 15 years, I was into that, very much paleo, and then that kind of transitioned into keto, and now I'm back in that kind of combination of a bit of a keto. I go into keto, I do fasting, I definitely eat as clean as possible, but I'm leaning more towards a carnivore-based diet versus a plant-based diet. We can get into the reasons why later if it's of interest, but for me, it certainly suits me and my metabolism best. And I've always said you can't supplement your way out of a bad diet, and I truly believe that. And I'm moved away a little bit from synthetic vitamins and minerals, which is what I've, what my career was, all up until recently. It's been about, supplementation in the practitioner market, in the retail market. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I believe in that, but I think you have to start with your diet and you have to start with your lifestyle. And if, unless you get that right, no amount of supplements is going to help you, is going to really make a difference. There may be some symptomatic relief. There may be some, shortening duration of acute illnesses, but the chronic underlying illnesses that a lot of people are dealing with today are diseases of lifestyle. They're not, yes, there are genetic issues or diseases that come through. There's genetic predispositions to find yourself in certain chronic disease states, but ultimately there are most of the chronic diseases that we're suffering from today can be preventable or can be reversed, and you can make a huge impact on through diet and lifestyle. And we all know this, but we forget it because it's just not in our faces every day.
Now, I have something that this was a question I was going to ask a little later on, but now that we're talking about it, I realise that this is a bit strange considering Melrose do fish oils and they do ghee. But there does seem to be a little bit of, Melrose is a vegan brand, even though you do some animal-based products, right? And I use those products as well, but still my mind goes to, that's a vegan or a vegetarian brand. And there are brands out there that are wholly founded on this veganism principle. But it appears that Melrose really is a whole food. You are encompassing all the foods. And I do have friends that have chosen not to consume any animal products, not for the harm on the animal, but their perceived value or the perceived impact that will have on our environment. And I'm so curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Yes, absolutely. So let's pick up the first point around Melrose being a vegan brand, and I think that's very true. I think there is perception, particularly amongst say, some of our original users of Melrose, that they've looked at it and gone, okay, well, we do greens powders, we do chlorella, we do spirulina, we do green superfoods products, therefore we must be a vegan brand. And I don't think that was out of any intention. I just think that's just how we've evolved. And as I see it, there are many ways that people can gain optimal health and wellness, and that can be through supplementation. So I think some people are still very focused on, am I getting enough greens in my diet? And the best way to do that is, because I don't eat a lot of green leafy vegetables, or I'm not eating a lot of legumes or what have you, then they will go for a green supplement, and they will get that in their day. And then, in their mind, they're getting the greens and the nutrients from those greens, which is fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. And we will continue to bring out products like that, because I think we need to meet the market where the market is. And again, the prescription around how I eat, I don't want to overlay that on to the organization. But what I do want is, I want to be able to offer products that meet people where they are at in their journey, on their journey for health and wellness. And if you are on a journey of health and wellness where you are transitioning from a processed food diet, so a diet high in processed foods, high in sugary foods, basically you're eating like crap, and you transition from that into a vegan or vegetarian-based diet, I think that's wonderful, because you will see some definite changes in your metabolic rate, in your ability to digest foods, in your overall health and well-being. You will sleep better, you will function better, you will poop better, all of these things you'll get benefits from, right? So if you're eating like rubbish, you're not moving, you're not sleeping, you're consuming way too much social media, all of these things, and you're doing all those things with your diet, moving to a vegetarian vegan diet is a great thing. And you'll notice the difference.
Agree.
But it's not going to sustain, in my opinion, it's not necessarily going to sustain you or bring you optimal health and wellness beyond 3, 4, 5 years. You'll probably need to start either supplementing with protein, definitely with some vitamins and minerals. You won't be able to get it all from a diet. And then you can transition from that vegan vegetarian diet into more of an omnivore style diet, where you're getting a lot more of your protein from animal sources. And then again, if you are optimally health and well in that state, that's awesome. I love that. And then we will have products for you then too. And then when you move beyond that into what I would consider I guess an even more optimal way of eating, you will then move into a carnivore paleo kind of way of eating, where you are now, I guess, looking for foods that have the highest density of nutrition, red meats, organ meats. You're eating fruit as a carbohydrate source. You're reducing the amount of, say, vegetables in your diet, because and again, we can get into this later, but vegetables contain anti-nutrients in the way of saponins, phytates, lectins, oxalates, etc. So, and they're anti-nutrients, right? So they'll bind to vitamins and minerals, and they won't allow them to be bioavailable. And in some cases, there will be, they'll bind to protein as well, and then the protein is less bioavailable. So from a nutrient-dense perspective, vegetables and legumes and grains aren't where it's at. And so again, in the future in Melrose, we'll have products for that style of individual, or that person who wants to eat more of a carnivore-rich diet. Things like bone broths, nutrient-dense bone broths that heal the gut and provide, an amazing array of nutrition. Organ meats, we'll have a range of organ meat products coming out very soon as well. Protein from beef is also on the drawing board for us. So we will be leaning into that space because again, we want to meet people where they're at. So if people are looking for a good quality organ meat product because they want to get and ensure that they're getting their vitamin and minerals and amino acids and choline and carnosine in a natural way, and they don't like to eat liver, because let's face it, unless we've grown up eating liver and heart and kidney, a lot of us have an aversion to it. But it is the most nutrient dense food on the planet. let's not just talk about, in general, but on the planet, it is the most nutrient-dense food that anyone can possibly find. And that's why I'm passionate about it, because I'm leaning into that space now, away from, say, taking a synthetic vitamin and mineral. And I'm not shunning them, because I've, built a career on vitamins and dietary supplements and synthetic vitamins and dietary supplements. But I guess I'm just at a stage now where I think to do it best is to do it with in a natural way.
In a whole food way. Yeah, I'm with you
In a
there.
whole food way, exactly.
So do you have any stats, or do you know much about the impact of the perceived impact, I should say, of animals on the planet, and how people believe that we're disturbing the atmosphere with, carbon emissions? Do you have much in the way of that?
Yeah. That was the first part of your question. And I kind of got sidetracked.
That's good. That's good.
I tend to do. So it's interesting. So I think and I touched on this before, which is there's a bit of an anti-meat sentiment, anti-red meat sentiment, right? That's definite. And that's showing itself and manifesting itself in so many different ways. You're seeing governments mandate, no meat Mondays or meat-free Fridays, and that's based on a narrative that doesn't have real science behind it. It's one of these things that, it's meat is bad for you, meat causes cancer. It's one of those things that people repeat so often, and it comes back to the fact that if you repeat a lie enough times, it becomes the truth, and we don't question it. So we don't, and meat's bad for the environment. That's the one that you've just brought through, which is, again, it's not based on real science. There is no science to demonstrate that our industry, our meat industry, is bad for is causing greenhouse gases to go up. Now, I want to say one thing, because I think that a lot of the time, agricultural farming or farming practices are kind of all put into one bucket, and it's not necessarily true. So I'm very much against factory farming. I'm very much against animal cruelty, and I think that meat can be farmed in a sustainable, ethically an ethical manner. So I just want to say that from the outset. I don't think it's done well now. However, there are pockets of ag that are doing it very well, and that's obviously in the organic industry, and it's also in the sustainable ag industry, and that's another growing, movement within farming, is to do it sustainably. So if we think about, coming back to your question, if we think about the greenhouse gases and the percentage of greenhouse gases that are emitted around the world, if you look at it like a pie chart or a graph, right? So if you look at 100% of greenhouse gases being emitted, and I've actually brought with me some stats, so it's not just coming directly off my head. And I do want to recommend a book for the listeners, if you want to kind of get your head around this. And again, I'm not an expert, right? So I just want to start by saying that I'm no expert, but I'm passionate about this. And I think if anything, if people can take one or two things away from our chat today, is question everything. Don't just blindly go along with a narrative that suits certain industries over others. But this book called Sacred Cow by Diana Rodgers and Robb.
Yeah, I'll pop that in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, that's brilliant, and that's a really easy read. There's also a documentary from the same name that I'd also recommend people having a look at. So Of all of the methane claims, if we look at this is an American citation, so just put that into perspective. Probably you'd be able to extrapolate it to most Western countries. So about 29% of all carbon emissions are coming from cars. So the cars that we're driving on the road. So no surprise. About the same amount, 28%, coming from our electricity and how we actually make electricity. 22% is industry. Your typical industry, 22%. Commercial is 6.4%, so that's offices, all of the electricity is associated with burning lights, basic commercial, retail, all of those sorts of things. Residential is around 5%.
Oh, so wow.
That's pretty, it's lower than you think, right?
Yeah.
But, and then from there, we've got agricultural crops. Mm-hmm. So ag, we're talking about, all sorts of agricultural farming. That is 4.7%. And then we go to ag livestock, and that is just under 4%. So of that 4%, 2% is coming from beef.
Of that 4%?
Of that 4%, 2% is coming from beef. So, and then when you do a longitudinal study and you look at what has been the increase in livestock or beef cattle over the past 100 years, guess how much of an increase in greenhouse gas emissions has come from beef cattle over the last 100 years?
Well, that was going to be my question, actually, but now that this is a question on me, I feel like it would be really low, but my expectation is it would be very high.
Exactly. I guess that's where I was going. It's 1%. So in the course of the last 100 years, the livestock or cattle emissions has grown 1%. Now, again, this isn't, you don't have to believe me. Go to the, go to the references and look it up and do your own research. But I was blown away by that, because if you really kind of get caught up in the hysteria around red meat, you'd basically, I would be turning to plant-based foods too, thinking that I was doing the best thing for the environment. But what can we actually do for the environment? Well, we can drive our cars less. That's for a start, because that's the largest emission, the largest contributor to greenhouse gases is our cars. Second is industry. So what are we doing with industry? And there are some excellent people out there doing some amazing things to reduce greenhouse gases in our industry. But it's not. We're not going to do it with reducing the amount of red meat we're eating. So let's just say that from the start. So the plant-based industry, or the plant-based food industry, I should say, so the Beyond Meats and the Beyond Burgers and the Impossible Burgers and the Frankenstein burgers, that are the industries that are out there that are growing and that are getting a lot of investment. They're not making any money, by the way, at the moment, and most of their share prices are down, particularly over the course of the last 6 months. There's I think that the dream isn't necessarily coming to fruition for a lot of these companies. It's not stopping new companies coming forward with plant-based alternatives and all sorts of different lab-based meat alternatives that are also attracting a lot of funding. And a lot of these people are jumping on bandwagons. They're seeing a opportunity around plant-based because they see a sentiment that's coming through. But in all honesty, the food certainly isn't nutrient dense. Let's just start there. Sure. It's not nutrient dense, so you're not going to get, the amount of protein, a good quality protein out of these foods. Number two, they are made with a whole raft of chemicals that you wouldn't be putting into your body if you were consuming a whole food diet. So preservatives, lots of different colors, flavors, canola oils, seed oils, and pea protein powder to boost up the protein in content in the foods. And I might add that obviously, the proteins within legumes and vegetables aren't as bioavailable. So you're not going to, even though that you might have, 20 grams of protein, the bioavailability of that protein is really down around that, between 10 and 15% mark, right? So,
and also you were just talking about the industrial impact. Don't we have to get that from the industrial burning and then put it into a food?
Well, this is right, and this is where I think a lot of the media and a lot of the individuals who are saying how a plant-based diet is better for the environment, they're missing this very important point, which is what is the carbon footprint of producing an Impossible Burger? And there's been some work done around this, and it's actually 2 to 3 times more larger carbon footprint than actually bringing a piece of meat to your table.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's looking at the entire life cycle of that Frankenstein burger or plant-based food. And that's the other thing. So the plant-based movement, in particular, these types of meat alternatives can't win on a health perspective, right? So that the foods themselves aren't anywhere near as healthy as real food. Number two, they're actually worse for the environment than cattle. And if you look at a sustainably raised head of cattle, in a way which is in a really clean farm, which is sustainable, that can actually have a negative carbon footprint. So they're actually taking more, or rather, they're actually putting more carbon back into the environment.
Wow.
By farming in this sustainable way. So that's some farms that are doing it really, really well. And just a side note, if people are super interested in regenerative, sustainable farming, there's a brilliant documentary that will blow you away, and it's called The Biggest Littlest Farm. And again, if you want to know everything, or if you just want to get a sample or introduction into regenerative farming and how regenerative farming can work, it's an awesome doco. So 2 things: Sacred Cow and The Biggest Littlest Farm. And so yeah, so then it comes to this healthy piece around plant-based foods and this industry that's popping up around plant-based foods. And if you think about a lot of the ingredients that are going into a lot of these plant-based foods, they are monocrop agriculture. So monocrop agriculture is essentially you clear the land and you farm, whether it be corn or wheat or peas or whatever it is, and you basically have these rows and rows and rows of this monocrops being farmed. And the issue here is that we're growing these crops, we're taking nutrients from the soil and we're not replacing those nutrients back into the soil. And so we're actually reducing the biodiversity of the soil by cropping these, by growing these crops. And over time, we're actually killing the soil. So we're making the soil, it's basically a barren wasteland after these crops have been grown. And there are governments now, certain governments, and I think the New Zealand government is paying farmers to leave their land barren or vacant so that they can actually put more nutrients back into it. And so they can then grow more crops that are going into these, into the food system to make, these Impossible Burgers or, high fructose corn syrup or what have you. So it's a bit of a false economy when you really uncover it and dive into it. And it's based on a fallacy, which is, let's consume a plant-based diet.
So this is the question everything statement that you had earlier. Why? Why are they pushing this?
Why? It's just ask the question, why? And because from an evolutionary perspective, we've evolved to eat meats. Most of our evolution, I'm going back 1 million years now, happened when our ancestors were in a position to hunt meat and were to consume nutrient-dense proteins. That's when most of our evolution happened. And today we are it's really only been in the last 100 years when we started consuming, seed oils and a diet high in sugar, and we've stopped eating nutrient dense foods. It's that our rates of autoimmune conditions, our chronic disease states, our cancers, all of these diseases of the last 50 to 70, 100 years has really come to fruition once we started moving away from a traditional diet of meats, organ meats, fruit, and minimum amounts of vegetables and starches, and that's something that you cannot deny in terms of when you look at the states of health around the world and how certain societies have evolved and what their chronic disease states are now.
Now, I remember I spoke to you not long ago, and you had a really excellent quote which has been playing on my mind, and I'm just going to trigger, see if you remember, but
yeah.
You're talking about how meat has been, it causes cancer, and there's a correlation. Do you remember?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I remember that. So that's the thing. I think that the narrative around meat being bad for you, or meat reducing your your life, your age and your life cycle has come out of a lot of studies, and these studies are what people point to all of the time and say, well, yeah, meat reduces your age when you die, and meat causes all of these chronic disease states and cancer, et cetera, et cetera. And what they actually are is they're epidemiological studies, right? So they're correlations. The studies are basically looking at populations of people, and they are recording their daily habits, including their diet, and then they're looking at their health outcomes. And the correlation doesn't mean causation. And that's something that's really important. Please remember that. Correlation doesn't equal causation. There are a lot of different factors at play in a lot of these epidemiological studies, including healthy user bias and unhealthy user bias. And when you account for both those biases, which are very strong biases, by the way, when you account for them, the correlation doesn't even come to fruition. So the correlation goes away. But I think the quote that you refer to was, again, this probably seems a little bit absurd to many people, but there was one year where the years that Nicolas Cage, the movie actor, has made the most amount of movies. At the same time, the drownings in backyard pools were at its highest. So you would then correlate, and if this was a natural conclusion, you would correlate that in a year when Nicolas Cage made, his 7 movies and the rates of backyard drownings went up, you could pretty much say that Nicolas Cage caused those drownings. Now, that may well be the case, depending on how you feel about Nicolas Cage. But I think Nicolas Cage is a great actor, so I wouldn't like to make that causation. But it's the absurdity of that, right? These things are completely unrelated. However, they happened at the same time. Therefore, we're attributing cause to the fact that Nicolas Cage made, whatever movies he made in that period of time. So I think, again, question everything. So when you are hearing these styles of kind of throwaway comments or sound bites, right? Sound bites that meet a narrative or allow you to do your virtual signaling about how, eating meat is bad for you, look into it. Because there are no interventional studies, 0 interventional studies that demonstrate that a diet high in red meat equals cancer, or a diet high in red meat equals a reduction in lifespan. So that's something that, again, there's lots of different information out there that you can look into around that.
So after this, I actually want to go down a rabbit hole and find out why are they, when I say they, people beyond, maybe in marketing, maybe there's a hidden agenda somewhere. I'd love to know why they're trying to push this onto people, because it really does cause a huge detriment in health. And I see in clinic when patients come and they've been on a vegan or a vegetarian diet for 5, 6, 7 years, they just start to wane. And then you're trying to build them up, and they don't want to consume any meat, but there is nothing better than that to get them to a level where they expect to be or where they once were.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And the other thing is, I guess I want to say is if you're choosing not to eat meat because it's an important ethical position that you maintain, and that's a very personal thing, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Just be really clear about why you're not eating meat. Because if you're eating meat, if you're not eating meat because you think it's healthier for you, I just ask that you look into that and do a lot of research beyond, a soundbite or, a couple of different vegan podcasts or vegetarian podcasts, because when you really dive into it, it doesn't play out. Now, there may be some people who are genetically predispositioned or genetically predisposed to do better on a vegetarian or vegan diet. That may well be the case, but I guarantee you that's going to be the exception. It's not going to be the rule. And so saying that, if that's your choice, that's fine. But please know that you will need to supplement your diet with vitamins and minerals and protein, highly bioavailable protein. And you're probably going to be eating and consuming a lot more than you would normally have to consume and eat if you were eating a nutrient-dense diet. But just know that, and that's okay. What's behind it? I mean, you could be. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy. Well, that's probably not true. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not an extreme conspiracy theorist, right? I don't think the world is flat, and I don't think we didn't land on the moon. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Let's not get into let's not get into anything else along those lines. But I do think that it's there is quite a strong plant ag movement in the US, and there are high net worth individuals who are incredibly powerful, who are buying up lots and lots of farmland in the US and investing in pea protein crops, investing in plant-based companies. And so there is a movement that is economically driven. They are driven by profits, and driving a narrative around meat and around plant-based diets suits them. And the meat industry probably isn't as organized. I don't know.
Or even glamorous. It's not as glamorous.
It's not. And think about it. It's easy to demonize meat. It's super easy to demonize meat because let's face it, red meat is not sexy. I mean, I
don't know about you, but I do like the look of a tomahawk.
I think a tomahawk's super sexy. But I think it's easy to demonize it because there's, it's red and it's bloody.
True.
Red and bloody, we equate that with, I know it's weird, but we equate it with death.
True.
And we are now so far removed from our food. Our society, going back 50, 70, 80 years, we probably knew the food we were eating because it was being grown in our backyard. And it was okay. That was okay. Now it's incredibly, there are a few people that they shop at their farmer's market and they buy their local produce locally. It's not shipped in from, hundreds of kilometers away. And they get to know, the farmer, and they get to know their providor. So there is a movement. There is this kind of local movement that's coming back. But typically we don't know the food that's sitting on our plate. We don't know where the chicken that we eat are being grown. And unfortunately, most chicken is being grown in a factory, highly intense industry, which is not good for the animals, and it's certainly not good for the meat, and you're not getting the best quality meat.
True.
But yeah, it's easy to kind of create a narrative around the environment, health, and demonizing an industry. I think it's super easy.
True. So let's go back now, because I want to touch on, you mentioned some new products that are coming. So I want to talk about that. But I want to talk about some products that you brought out, or Melrose brought out, in relation to the demand. So remember I was asking, is it market-driven, or a Melrose sort of creating these products based on what they believe the market requires? And I remember last year stress support was brought out, which I thought was phenomenal, because we were so stressed out. I've got to say, in Melbourne especially, it was a really stressful time. Hugely successful product, especially because it was first of all, it was a powder, so it was easy to, dose appropriately, but it had that formulation, nutrients and herbs that were traditionally used to combat the negative effects of stress. This year, Immune Guard, again, I would say that's probably driven by the market, because people were like, we want a product that's high in quercetin, zinc, and really, you guys did a great job at encompassing everything that I would think should be in an immune boosting formula. It's phenomenal. But then came the turmeric, high strength turmeric.
Oh yes. Yep.
Oh my goodness. Did not expect that. So as soon as I opened, because there's turmeric on the market, but as soon as I opened that tub and I smelt the beautiful aromatics and sprinkled it on my ice cream and put it in my baking, amazing. I did not expect that. Now, given that I didn't expect that, what can we expect from Melrose in the not too distant future?
Okay, well, I touched on it a little bit, but you talked about the stress relief product, which came out, I think, just prior to me joining. I love that product. I think it's an amazing product. I one of the product that I take a lot. I mean, again, I'm talking about. We've just been talking about whole foods and what and trying to get most of your nutrition from whole foods. But I do think that there's one nutrient that is very difficult to get in high doses, particularly even if you are eating a great diet and you are doing a lot of exercise. And I do I exercise every day, so I think my magnesium requirements are a lot higher than the average bear. However, I do get a lot of benefit from taking magnesium. So we're bringing out a high strength magnesium powder,
Wow.
which is focused on sleep and restoration. So that's coming out. Maybe when this podcast comes out, we'll have that out. I think sometime in October, and that's a beautiful product that we developed. High strength magnesium and some lovely herbs that are that help and are beneficial for sleep and getting into a deep sleep initially, and then cycling through the night. So this is fundamental for me. Sleeping is incredibly important, and as you referred to and alluded to, stress is a massive issue coming out of COVID. The way that we're living our lives these days, incredibly stressful. We are pumping our adrenals, and the byproduct of stress is not sleeping. So if we can correct that with, supporting our adrenals and getting to sleep earlier, and ensuring our magnesium levels are high, and if we can compound it with a few herbs that are going to cause some, they're going to have a calmative, sedative effect, then I think we'll be able to do something really good for people. And it has to taste good. And I can say,
that to say, I bet it tastes amazing.
Yeah, it does. It tastes amazing. Yeah. So look out for that.
And broths.
Oh yes, broths. So again, this is a bit of a passion of mine. Bone broths is something that I've been consuming, and I make my own bone broths at home. But I also, when you, for whatever reason, if you need to supplement your bone broth, then I'll do packet bone broths or powders, or the ones that we're bringing out are actually going to be bone broth bombs. Yeah, so think of a bath bomb.
Yeah.
But this is a bone broth bomb. So it will, yeah, I know. So organic, it's an organic chicken broth, nothing but bone broth. And it's amazing. It tastes incredible. I just add the ones that I've got some prototypes, but just squeeze a little bit of lemon, some pepper. Amazing.
All right.
Yep.
And finally, I wanted to touch on the amazing work Melrose is doing for remote Australian communities to gain long-term access to fresh foods and prevent malnourishment. So I know you guys are working with the Food Ladder.
The Food Ladder, yes. Yeah, thank you for asking about our relationship with the Food Ladder. So I guess our connection with the Food Ladder goes back about 3 to 4 years. And the Food Ladder are an amazing organisation who, as you mentioned, worked with remote Indigenous communities to ensure that they have got food security. And it's something that we feel very passionate about at Melrose. And the team at Food Ladder will find these Indigenous communities, and in many instances they are Indigenous, predominantly Indigenous communities that are very remote and that struggle to access fresh fruit, vegetables, because of really two things. It's the fact that they are so remote, and the other part of it is when food, and whether it be I guess, a supermarket close by or a retailer close by, when they actually do get the fruit and vegetables delivered to them, in many instances, they are a little bit old and they are not the best looking, and they are super expensive. So when you add all those things up, it's not necessarily an option for a lot of these communities to access, and therefore they're not getting that in their diet. And so a food ladder greenhouse will enable them to farm their own fruit and vegetables, and it also teaches those communities how to actually grow them as well and sustainably grow them. And they also do work with the local schools as well. So they're teaching the kids in those schools, a lot of them, they're mostly primary schools, how to grow and harvest these fruits and veggies. So they're consuming them themselves, but they're also, in some instances, they're also turning it into a little bit of a commercial opportunity for them. So they're able to sell those fruits and vegetables to local businesses, who then put those into, say, sandwiches or into meals and things and sells them. So it's a really lovely relationship that we have, and I think our commitment to them is that they can then, and they're supported by a number of organisations, but our commitment is that we bring 2 to 3 greenhouses to local community, or to far remote local communities in every year. So we do that, and we also fundraise internally as well, so we can top up some of those greenhouse contributions. Each greenhouse costs around 20 grand to put together.
So these are big ones.
Yeah, I mean they're relatively big. I mean you can feed a small community with the produce that comes out of them. And it's just, the other thing is that we really are looking forward to doing is partnering with some of the remote Indigenous communities that have these greenhouses to grow some local bush food that we can then in turn bring back into our business and turn into some products as well. So we might have some local Indigenous ingredients in some of our products going forward.
And I'm guessing these won't be monocrop seeds either.
No. No, not at all. No, these are there's quite a bit of diversity going on within greenhouses.
And Nathan, is this an initiative that you brought to the Melrose?
No, this is something that I inherited when I came to work at Melrose. So the Douglas family were the ones that had this relationship, and we've brought it into the business. So
that is awesome.
Yeah,
that's a wonderful way to end the story. Look, thank you so much for joining us. I have learnt so much, and I love your stories. I love the insights that you have in the industry, and I will provide all the links to the documentary, which was The Biggest Littlest Farm.
The Biggest Littlest Farm.
Yep. The
book, The Sacred Cow, and there's one more book that I want to. So 3 things that I want to leave you with, which is now this is probably for those who are super along on their journey, or they're a little bit curious around a carnivore diet. This is called The Carnivore Code by Paul Salandino.
I'll put that in the show notes as well. And I'll also put some information to the food ladder if anyone's interested to donate there.
Oh, thank you so much, Vicky.
Oh, no, thank you. I love talking with you, Nathan. I can't wait to see you in the Melrose office one day.
Yeah, come on by.
I will.
That far away.
Broths. I want to see the broths.
Oh, yes, don't worry. I'll drop some broths over to you for sure.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll be featuring them on the socials as well. Thank you so much, Nathan.
That's okay. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.